Hi everybody, welcome back to another cheapo multimeter review. My name's Darren, I hope you enjoy this one. It's a tacky review today. When I say tacky, I'm talking Tacklife tacky. That's right, it's the DM02A auto-ranging multimeter. Now, this is an auto-ranging multimeter unlike the last Tacklife that we looked at. And what does auto-ranging mean? Well, simply said, it means you don't get to play with your selector switch. What I meant to say is you don't get to, well, you know what I meant. Basically, the auto-ranging feature enables you to concentrate more on what you're testing as opposed to messing with the meter. Now it has its pros and its cons, but at least in this case, it's auto-ranging, so that's what we're looking at. Now this meter doesn't boast any really outstanding specs per se. In terms of resolution for resistance, for instance, it goes up to 20 mega ohm. Kind of a little bit too low. Once again, I don't know why meter manufacturers can at least give us 60 mega ohm as a standard resistance range. In terms of AC/DC voltage, we're looking at 600 volts for both. It does do diode mode as well, and we'll take a look at that shortly, and we'll check out the input voltage, or sorry, the output voltage rather, at the same time. Also does frequency, non-contact voltage, and amps. And this only goes up to 250 milliamps. So we're going to take a look at those ranges, check out the good and the not so good. Looking at the leads, I have to say they're a little different. Not your typical looking generic lead. They have this rather interesting indentation right down the center. And it almost looks like they can detach, but of course they can't. Fairly pointy to the touch. They are written as Cat 3 1000 volt. And do we have an amperage reading on here yet? It says 10 amps max. Now it's just your typical non-silicone variety. The shroud's a little on the short side, but as always we will use these leads for the test. Voltage DC. Voltage AC. Resistance up to 20 mega ohm. Diode and continuity. Non-contact voltage. Frequency up to 200 kilohertz. Microamps starting at 200 microamps. Milliamps up to 200 milliamps. Amps up to 10. Finally, on the far right side we have another off selector. Looking at the display on the Tacklife, you can see that it is rather on the small side. Small display, small font, not very crisp. Not overly impressed with this guy. If we turn on the backlight, you can see definitely not a huge difference. With the lights down, you can see it is rather crisp. So in terms of the backlight, okay, but yeah, backlight doesn't stay on for very long, about 20 seconds or so. Ergonomically speaking, it's okay. You know, once again, it just doesn't feel 100% in the hand. Not exactly sure why, but yeah, for me at least, it's just not the greatest feeling cheapo meter. Looking at the back, we've got our standing bail or tilt stand, and it's your typical angle. And as you can see, change the selector without any problems. Speaking of the selector switch, it's a little on the mushy side. It does have a nice clack, but a little too mushy for my liking, so not too thrilled about the selector switch on this guy. This is the 2000 count multimeter, and it weighs a little bit less than the other guy that I just reviewed. Yeah, definitely more heft with the DM03B. Speaking of the DM03B, we're going to put these two head to head right now on a voltage test. The DC power supply hooked up, and both meters are ready for action. Sitting at 0.665 volts. Pretty close, 0.667 versus 0.664 for the 02A. Here we go, let's bring that voltage up. Right away, we're going to hit 9.6 volts, and boom, we are over limit. So we're going to take things up because it's a non-auto-ranging meter, and there we go. So 9.7 volts, 9.64 for the 02A. higher yet, taking it up to 17.6 volts. 17.6 both ways through, looking good. Taking up to 25.4 volts. 25.4 for the 02A, 25.6 the 03B. Finally maxing it out at a whopping, and I mean whopping, 31.5 volts DC, 31.3 the Tacklife DM02A, and 31.5 spot on for the 03B. Do we have a winner? Well, I'm going to probably go with the 03B. Yeah, I was just a little more responsive, and I'd have to give it the edge. We're now in milliamp mode, and I've got it hooked up to the PSN power supply, which I will be doing a review on very shortly. This is one cool power supply. Right now we're showing at around 40 milliamps, and we're reading just a tad high on the Tacklife, around 45. Now remember, in the book they're stating this as a 200 milliamp max. On the meter itself it's saying 250, so let's live on the edge and let's see if we can do 250. Yeah, so we're going to bring it up slowly. Alrighty, so we're sitting at 230 milliamps, and we're getting an OL, which is telling us that we are over. So bringing it back down to 180 milliamps, and it looks like we're okay. So maybe not the greatest meter, but you do get the alarm at least, and it doesn't just blow the fuse. So they've obviously put in a slightly higher rated fuse, so I mean that's a good thing. But yeah, we're maxed out at 200 milliamp. It's that time again. Continuity time. Is it continuity? Is it continuity? Or is it just plain darn fun? I think it's a bit of everything. Alrighty. Without further ado, these are the stock leads that ship with the 02A. Here we go. Oh, let's put it into continuity mode. Alrighty. On a 1 and a 2 and a... Fooled you. Alright, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Kind of bizarre continuity. It sounds scratched at first, but then it seems to latch, and then it's back to scratched, and I think we have a probe issue. Alrighty, here we are with the Probe Masters. Try number 2. There's still obviously a delay, but 100 times better with the Probe Masters, so definitely the stock leads are holding you back. Something worth mentioning is the fact that the leads that ship with the 02A definitely larger than those that ship with the 03B. Yeah, so for me at least, it's a bonus. I do prefer a bigger lead as opposed to a smaller lead. Just works better for my hands. AC voltage mode right now, and yeah, pretty well. Spot on. 119 volts. Diode mode is next. Here we go. We are in diode position. Starting off with the green. And, oh, nothing. Nothing at all. It's, huh? Oh, wow. Absolutely nada. Okay, let's try the yellow. Nothing for yellow. Try the red. Really? The blue. Finally, the white. What the heck? Like, absolutely nothing. I'm just going to verify with the 03B. Right, so we are lighting the yellow and the red. Interesting. So when it comes to LEDs, DM02A is not for you. Nothing. 0 for 5. According to the Beckman, there's a reason why we have such a lousy LED output. 1.5 volts. Yeah, that's all the Tacklife is giving us in this respect. So if you do a lot of LED testing, you're definitely going to want to pass this one by. Next up is resistance mode. As you can see here, we're at 9 mega ohm and we're pretty darn close. Now this has a pretty lousy range. It goes up to a whopping 20 mega ohm, so definitely just not enough. But anyway, let's bring it down to 5 mega ohm. So it's a little slow to settle, as you can see. We're gonna get there pretty close. There we are, close enough. Okay, bring it down to 1 mega ohm even. Yeah, so it does just take a while to settle. And okay, close enough. But yeah, so in terms of resistance, once again, just not the meter for you if you have any sort of serious resistance checking going on. Next up, it's the drop-off voltage for the 02A. So we're sitting at 9 volts even right now. Even Steven, easy breezy, and it's looking good. Going down to 7.5 volts. Hey, no worries there. We still have lights. Going down further, taking it just to 6 volts even. Looking good. Oh, here we go. 4.9 volts, 4.8, 4.5, 4.3, 4 even, and we still have a display. Hey, something good to be said about this meter. Down to 3.8 volts, 3.7, and it is starting to fade. So 3.7 back to 3.8. So you're good to around 4 volts. After 4 volts, it's going to get a little on the dicey side. And you can see that low battery indicator that kicked in at around 4.8 volts. So all being said and done, that 9-volt battery should last you a long time. Next up, we're going to measure the current draw with the backlight enabled and disabled. Currently, the backlight is disabled on the DM02A, and the current draw is around 0.59 milliamps. Now we're going to enable the backlight, and yeah, that jumps exponentially. We're up to around 4.6 milliamps. Now we are going to let that backlight fade into oblivion. Here she comes. Come on. And back down to 0.59 milliamps. So quite a difference with that backlight enabled. With the backlight disabled, you can expect to get around 600 to 700 hours with the standard alkaline 9-volt. With the backlight enabled, you would only get around 60 to 70 hours. So you can see why some meter manufacturers choose to disable that backlight auto on, auto off functionality altogether. Definitely a lot bigger current draw with the backlight enabled. Taking a look at NCV mode, have our live power wire here. Okay, so it works. Probably not the most responsive or sensitive, not very loud. Yeah. Okay, well, suffice to say, I have not been too impressed with this meter thus far. Let's take a look on the inside and see if things are any better. Here we go, taking a look on the inside. As you can see, first of all, we do have one self-threading brass insert there, so that's a good thing. Powered by one 9-volt battery. And let's take it apart. So first of all, no surprise. Yeah, let's hear it, folks. Say it after me. No. Shielding. Hey, wow. Okay, let's take a look. Doing a side-by-side with the 02A on the left and the 03B on the right. As you can tell, there's actually quite a difference. If we look at the current shunt itself on the 02A, rather meek, generic looking, nothing special. Stark contrast to the 03B, we have a really nice looking current shunt with some angles thrown in for better resistance, a slightly thicker gauge, and just generally speaking, much better quality. Also, if we take a look upwards at the input jacks themselves, very poor quality on the 02A, and I won't even go into that soldering job again, just atrocious. Over here on the 03B, much better soldering, and we have the dual split variety. So in contrast to the one retainer here, we have two on the 03B. So overall, going to last a lot longer and just generally better made. Going further up, we have our set of MILFs over here, and yes, they both do have the ceramic fuses, which is definitely a bonus. Looking at PTCs, we have not one but two, and they're actually a slightly better grade. So we have a dual PTC on the 03B as opposed to a smaller singular PTC on the 02A. So yeah, definitely some better input protection going on with the 03B. Probably the only thing I'm going to say is better done on the 2A is the speaker. The piezo here, at least it has its retention at the top of the PCB, not in the way of the overall circuit. I do not like what they did with the speaker here. This sort of mounting directly amidst all these other SMD components, I just don't like it. So yeah, for the speaker at least, the 02A is better. But generally speaking, yeah, I have to give the overall fit, finish, and quality to the 03B. Starting off with the current shunt we have right here at the very bottom, R24. Moving up, we have our split type jacks, but in this case, at least, they are really poorly soldered. Not impressed at all. In fact, wow, look at that big solder glob over here. That is crazy. I haven't seen this before. So this is a real mess. Yeah, nightmare. That must have been hand soldered, I'm assuming, but poorly done. So this IC over here, that is an HEF 4528B, and that is a dual monostable multi-vibrator. Yes, that's right, I said vibrator. No. Get your mind out of the gutter, guys. No, it's an electronic circuit, at least, that's used to implement a variety of simple, let's call them two-state devices. Relaxation oscillators, timers, flip-flops, basically does amplification. So, yeah, you don't see those that often in multimeters, but there you go. Up here we have a speaker, a piezo, and over here is our tin can, aka oscillator. Main IC here is cobbed, and I wonder if it's one of those DTM varieties, but I do not see any other indication of that. So at this point, I'm not sure what IC they're utilizing on this board. Finally, over here we have the A320, that is the EEPROM, and that is what talks to the main IC in terms of all of the function set. That's pretty well it on this side of the board. I'm going to take it over to the other side and take a quick peek. Before I flip it over, obviously I forgot to point out the wire for the NCV here. Sometimes it'll utilize a filament here. They've got a wire that extends the entire circumference of the meter. Flipping it to the B side, we'll start off with the selector switch itself. Once again, very mushy, nothing special to write home about. Yeah, you can see you've got your two standard ball bearings, springs underneath those, and we have our switch contacts here. Pretty well plain Jane in the world of selector switches. Buttons themselves are rubber, not the plastic variety, so that's kind of nice. Here we have the elastomer zebra strip, that's what feeds the LCD display. And looking at the actual PCB itself, yeah, once again, really bad soldering, so it's yeah, very unimpressive. A lot of flux everywhere, and just generally speaking, a real hodgepodge. Do we have a fabrication date on this? Gosh, we do not. Everything but. Tracks wise, it looks like a cheap tin sort of material. Once again, you know, it's just a very, very thin PCB. The size of the PCB is very important. Just like when they started building main boards way back when, early 2000s, for instance, or late 90s, most motherboards were 6-7 layer PCB. That was the norm. Now, because money, cost, what have you, becomes more important, they start to chintz back on the layers of PCB, and the less layers you have, the more prone it is to errors. Things get hotter quicker, the vias perhaps don't travel as well. Generally speaking, just not as good. And it's no different with multimeters because, wow, this is a really cheap PCB. It feels like nothing. In fact, I think a Ritz cracker probably has more substance to it. So yeah, really ultra cheap. Okay, well, put it back together. I'll come back with my closing thoughts. Closing thoughts on the Tacklife DM02A. Pass this one by. Yeah, I've seen some, well, I'll have to say positive reviews on Amazon and the likes, but you know what? Truth be told, this is not a very good multimeter. There's a lot of cheap multimeters we have, and this is just not a good cheap multimeter. So pass this one by. It doesn't do a whole lot, and what it does it in a very meager fashion. There's a lot better meters out there, including that previous Tacklife, the 03B. So yeah, pass this one by. Not worth the money. Poor build quality, lousy ranges, doesn't do capacitance. I mean, I can go on and on. It's just crappy meter. And we saw what it did in terms of lighting up those LEDs. It didn't. It couldn't even light up one. So yeah, what can I say? Pass this one by. I'm giving the Tacklife DM02A a whopping 2 out of 5 stars. And that's being generous. Thanks for watching this review, everybody. Until the next time, keep on testing.